Hey guys, today we're going to wrap up 2023's movie content with my rankings of everything I saw in 2023 from top to bottom. There were a lot of films I didn't get a chance to see that I really wanted to, such as Priscilla, Barbie, Dream Scenario, and a few others that I really was looking forward to that I just didn't have the time for. But I saw 20 films, which is not bad by any means, and we're going to give my ranking of the top 20 films, not even the top 20, just all the 20 films I saw this year. From worst to best. Starting us off, Andy Muschietti's The Flash, the worst film I saw this year. And actually, I don't know. It was fun at the time. There's all sorts of nonsense, and it's characters I love and I'm very close to. I collect comic books weekly. I have, over like 500 comic books, current comic books that I pick up, not just an archive. I'm actively reading comic books, and I actively love and have such a deep connection with these characters. And it's just like the state of the DCU and the Flash films, like all I can do is just shake my head and laugh at what a fucking mess it all has become and try not to care. But it was fun at the time, but it's just depressing when I sit back and think about it and how it all ended up. And like, even though I know Aquaman is still coming out or did come out, Flash was supposed to be the final thing to happen in the DC universe. And if it's just an embarrassing, humiliating mess, for Michael Shannon, for Michael Keaton, it was, I don't know. It was fun at the time, but it's actually depressing to think about. Things that are also depressing to think about. Number 19, The Exorcist Believer. I'm going to sneeze. The Exorcist Believer. This movie had such a strong first act, like a strong first half, that I really thought, damn, we could be in for something good here. The trailers were amazing. The cast looked good. Everyone could act. And then once it really kicked off into full possession mode, everything just fell apart and was downright horrible. And not even just horrible, offensive to the source material and a slap in the face to everything the first Exorcist movie kind of stood for and was. And I just didn't like the direction they went with some of it, but I'll give you the pinnacle here that everyone complained about. In the first Exorcist movie, these two priests, spoilers for The Exorcist 1. So in this movie, there's a line that's so offensive and horrible and disgusting to the first Exorcist film. It actually made me sad and upset, and I couldn't believe that it was written into the script. They say in this film, the mother of Reagan says, they didn't let me into the room where they were doing the exorcism because of the patriarchy. Holy! I'm as anti-patriarchy as they come, but my God, that is not what happened in that first film. They said, you cannot come into this room because your daughter is violently possessed and saying disgusting, foul things and is cutting herself up and doing disgusting sexual acts, stuff that you do not want to bear witness to and that you shouldn't bear witness to, but we will do our best to save your daughter. And in this movie, she thanks them by saying they didn't let her into the room because of the damn patriarchy. Need I say more? Absolute. You know what? Guess what? Exorcist is 20, Flash is 19. It pissed me off that much. The Flash is better than The Exorcist Believer. Moving on. Saw X at number 18. The traps just weren't good, and that's all that it comes down to. The traps just weren't good. The story was fine. I like seeing Kramer up and about and moving through he's the POV character of the whole film. That was pretty awesome. But I really did not like any of the traps. Nothing really iconic in this movie. Nothing that stood out. And that's the biggest crime for a Saw film for me. The traps weren't good. The stories are. They vary widely in quality throughout the Saw franchise, and that's okay. I've come to expect that, but as long as the traps are good, that's what matters. And this one just didn't have good traps. Coming in number 17, this is where everyone's going to get real mad at me. The Killer by David Fincher. I love David Fincher. I love his work. Love Michael Fassbender. Love his work. The Killer felt like a Netflix original movie. It really did. Because it was. This is a Netflix film by David Fincher, and I actually couldn't believe that he made this. It was so run-of-the-mill, I thought, assassin story. It's got some good things and some commentary and some, upon reflection, it was maybe a shade deeper than I originally gave it credit for. But bottom line, I just didn't enjoy it. Nothing exceptionally wrong about it, just nothing exceptionally good about it either. I just thought it was boring. Moving on to number 17, I believe, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Another movie that really pissed me right off, but it was fun adventure. And there were things that were more egregiously bad about this than The Killer, but there were also lots of things that I'll probably rewatch and love in due time. And, you know, I would never, if I was doing an Indiana Jones marathon, I wouldn't be like, let's skip Dial of Destiny. I'd watch it. I would probably revisit it again. I hated how it ended. I didn't like where the character of Indiana Jones ended up, and I didn't really like Indiana Jones in this movie, is the main critique. You know, and it seems like Disney can only tell one story with old legacy characters. It worked cool for Luke Skywalker because it was nice to see that the realities of the world are like kind of, not everyone is perfect all the time, always. It can maintain a good attitude. Sometimes the world will beat that down out of you. But when every character starts to become like this old grizzled guy who's turned his back on the world, it's like, guys, come on, can we only do one thing here? And yeah, I just didn't love what they did with Indiana Jones. I thought it was quite boring, and his character choices. I mean, the movie was fine and fun, but it just lacked everything special about Indiana Jones movie. And also, it was all CGI backgrounds. Like, what the fuck is that? The whole point of Indiana Jones is it's a globe-trotting adventure and all these exotic locales. But you can't even go to Italy to film a scene on a beach. You're on a green screen in a studio backdrop. Like, come on, guys. You're Indiana Jones. Come on. Next up, we've got John Wick 4. John Wick 4, I wouldn't say let me down, but it didn't really blow me away either. A lot of the scenes, I think, went on far too long, namely the Paris scene where he's in that kind of circle, that square, and all the cars coming around hitting him. That should have been like a 3-minute transitional sequence. That shit went on forever. But other than that, the movie was pretty awesome. You know, some really creative camera work. Villain was pretty good. The motives were good. I liked everything in the movie. Nothing bad to say about John Wick, but it really wasn't as exceptional as I was hoping. And then we come to maybe the surprise of the year, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. I love Dungeons & Dragons so much. I've got all my D&D books right here off screen. I play D&D all the time. It's a IP very close to my heart. And I couldn't believe this movie was funny. It was adventurous. Every single thing in this movie was right from the page of a D&D game, it felt like. My only real critique was that Edgin the Bard never used bardic inspiration or played any shredding songs during a battle sequence, which, what the hell is that? You got a bard in your movie. Use them. It was a good, fun comedy, good action, adventure, fantasy, and I really, really enjoyed it. And lots of good practical effects, too. The practicals were awesome. It was just a really fun time. Moving on to things that were also fun. Napoleon. Napoleon, starring Joaquin Phoenix by Ridley Scott. I think people are being way too hard on this movie. I don't know a ton about Napoleon. I don't have any connections to Napoleon the figure, or any deep passion for him. This was my first real exposure to a lot of Napoleon's life. So maybe it's quite inaccurate, but the movie itself, what I saw on the screen, was awesome. I was not going in to watch a documentary, and I don't mind sort of alternative histories such as Amadeus or Inglourious Bastards. You know, Hitler was never killed in the theater by all those guys. And this never gets as egregious as that, to my knowledge, as going alternate history route. But I don't mind that it's not 1,000% accurate. The whole thing, though, my only really critique was that Napoleon was a young dude doing all this. And that was so mind-blowingly impressive about it. In this movie, he's like, 50 years old. But I thought it was tons of fun, amazing sequences, really big battles. The score was amazing, some beautiful cinematography. I loved my time in the theater when I saw this movie, and I thought it was a certified banger, really. Now we come to Ferrari, starring Adam Driver. That is some inspired casting. You look at young, pale, big-eared, black-haired Adam Driver, and you think, that is Enzo Ferrari. And it worked! Really quite a film. This thing was really... I really don't want to say too much about it, but long story short, the Ferrari team needs to win this big race because Ferrari's going to go under if they don't. And Adam Driver just nails it. The dialogue is so cool. The feel is so cool. The vibe is so cool. And just, he's also kind of a piece of shit, but he's got such charisma and such oomph to his screen presence. It's just amazing. The only really critique of the movie is that the audio mixing was horrible. And Shailene Woodley just refuses to attempt her Italian accent after the first scene. But other than that, I loved Ferrari. Okay, guys, now we're getting into the tier of films that were truly amazing bangers. Starting us off with The Iron Claw. Guys, for those of you who don't know, I work for TNA Impact Wrestling. I'm an editor there. And so wrestling is my day. Wrestling is my life from 9 to 5. And sometimes on weekends, I live and breathe wrestling. And to see the Von Erich story on the screen was really wild. And a little secret about me. I don't watch Dark Side of the Ring, so I'm not familiar with all the tragedies in wrestling. And all I knew about the Von Erichs was they had a really horrifyingly sad sequence of events happen to them. And when the movie was announced, I intentionally didn't look into it because I wanted to go into it not knowing what to expect. This was unbelievable. If I didn't know this was true, I would say it's unrealistic that so many horrifying things could happen to a single family. But I loved the cinematography, the soundtrack, the performances, the cast, the characters, everything about this movie was just awesome. Iron Claw, absolute banger, and I thought it was really quite a story. Moving on from Iron Claw, Asteroid City. You guys want to talk about photography and cinematography and such wit, such charm. Guys, it's Wes Anderson at his best. Need I say more? Oh, I love seeing Jason Schwartzman in a leading role too. That was awesome. Next up, guys, we have Talk to Me, one of the most inspiring films of the year. I watched Talk to Me, the credits rolled, and I said, okay, you know what? I've just got to fucking man up and make a movie. Because these guys were just YouTubers, and don't get me wrong, they had access to millions and millions of dollars. But they made this thing, and I've watched their channel for so long, and I knew they had it in them. And to see them come to Hollywood and deliver with such a masterpiece, and now Talk to Me 2 is happening, made me emotional, to be quite honest with you. Talk to Me is amazing. And I loved it so much. And also, Eowyn from Lord of the Rings. Oh, God, everything in this movie was just... I'm rewatching it tonight, I think. Oh, I get fired up just thinking about it. Talk to Me was so amazing. Next up, guys, we have Across the SpiderVerse. This movie's been hyped up to death, and all the hype is true. Believe the hype. Animation has a new standard, and no one really reaches the standard that Across the SpiderVerse has set, except for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, according to my brother, which I haven't seen, but my brother says Mutant Mayhem is the animated feature of the year, so maybe I'll have to check that out. Moving on, guys, we have Godzilla -1. You can't see it, but I have maybe about 45 pieces of Godzilla memorabilia in this basement alone. I've got 7 action figures over there, all the posters over here, a poster there, Godzilla action figures there on that back shelf. I've got tons of Godzilla action figures. My family loves Godzilla. We've seen every Godzilla movie, and -1 might be the best of them. Final Wars is probably my favorite because it's just Godzilla's greatest hits. I love Godzilla fighting the monsters. I like some of the more sci-fi elements, but in terms of the best human drama in a Godzilla story, it does not get better than this. Godzilla has some horrifying new powers in this. His presence is shocking, the way they handled him. But so many Godzilla movies throw in a human story because they think they have to, and they only do because they have to, and the human story ends up being shit. This was, and here's the issue. the original Godzilla films are about the humans and their kind of reaction, and the Japanese people's reaction to Godzilla. They're about the humans told through a metaphor or symbolism of Godzilla. Whereas 2014 Godzilla, that movie is about Godzilla, but they try to focus on the humans, but it's not about the humans. Only make it about the humans when the story actually is and should be about the humans. Don't just put them there because you need a vessel to show Godzilla. Show Godzilla because it's important to the human story. And that's what -1 did. Maybe the best Godzilla movie ever made. Next up, guys, A24's 4K re-release remaster of Stop Making Sense, the Talking Heads concert film. I knew very little of the Talking Heads music going into this. I knew Burning Down the House, Psycho Killer, and Letting the Days Go By. I knew that one. This film was... I'll be watching this every day for the rest of my life, and I probably could, and I probably would, and I probably will. This soundtrack has been on nonstop, and I just can't say enough about it. I believe the director of Silence of the Lambs made this as well. So many creative choices, the way the set is being built around them, the physicality, the energy, the vibe. This is just supreme theater experience. Amazing, amazing stuff. I can't really talk too much about it because there are no deep metaphors or this and that. That all comes from the music, not the film itself. But the way they show the story through and just capture the songs and the feel of the concert, they capture the feel of the concert through the cinematography and through the editing choices. Banger film. Okay, guys, we are now in the top 5. Coming in at number 5, The Holdovers. This one was low on the radar, guys. And then I saw the trailer in theaters and I thought, wow, that looks really, really exceptional. And I didn't really hype it with my friends or anything because I thought they would just think, oh, this looks like just a generic, holiday comedy. And then we watched it as a family. This is going to become a Christmas staple, a Christmas classic for years to come. I like this film because you can relate to every character. It feels like it's a period piece that takes place in the 70s, but it feels like it was shot in the 70s, not just in cinematography, but in audio quality. And that was one of the biggest things to me. In terms of audio quality, it felt like we were watching something shot in that time period. And the story is so touching. People who come together through extreme differences and really who hate each other when the film starts. But it's about what did 2 people or 3 people actually who really have very different dynamics. They have to make it work. How does it go? And it was touching and beautiful and funny and amazing. And it was my number 5 film of the year. Coming to number 4, Killers of the Flower Moon. This film let me down in some ways, but those are only because I knew the true full story. And you can only show so much in a film. If this wanted to tell the full story of the Osage murders, this would be a 10-hour film. They focused on one aspect of it, and that was their vessel for this story. And that aspect of the story, Scorsese nailed. He absolutely nailed it. And taking the film at face value for what it is, the music, it's Scorsese, it's classic Scorsese, and it's amazing. And I have nothing bad to say about this, other than that I wish it was longer. People say, oh, it's 3.5 hours, that's too long. I wish it was longer. Deal with it. Coming to number 3, Oppenheimer. Do I need to say anything? It was the most hyped movie of the year, and it delivered for me. The end. Coming in at number 2, my brother's favorite film of the year, and my second favorite is Poor Things. I've never seen a Yorgos Lanthimos film. I actually am one of these psychos, I guess, who's not crazy for Emma Stone. And I actually would steer away from stuff she did because something about her, I was just like, I just didn't like watching her perform, and I could never put my finger on it. Turns out I was insane because she's amazing. And this film, she goes through like every stage of life, and she portrays every emotion on the spectrum that a human can do to absolute perfection in this. The cinematography, the score and the cinematography complement this story so much. If you like weirdness and Frankenstein, and this is going to go under a lot of people's radar, but if you like weirdness, science fiction, gothic sort of world settings, so much of this film is just everything I love. And And this is a film that is really just all these weird, freaky, absurd things that I find interesting. Poor Things delivers on tenfold. And Mark Ruffalo can act. I've seen the guy play the Hulk in that one time in Shutter Island. He was awesome. He's amazing in this movie. Absolutely amazing. Guys, we finally come to my number one film of the year, Beau is Afraid. Ari Aster's critical flop and commercial flop is my favorite film of the year. Joaquin Phoenix delivers a flawless performance and a flawless film. This is the kind of movie I want to make. This is what it's all about to me. That Beau is Afraid is what movies are all about. It tells a very interesting story of a very interesting character in a very interesting way. From top to bottom, Beau is Afraid had me hooked at every second. It's fantastical, it's dramatic, it's disgusting, it's campy, it's corny, it's serious, it's scary. Everything a film can be, Beau is Afraid is at some point, and it does everything it wants to flawlessly. And I think a lot of people didn't like it because it did so much of what Ari Aster is not usually doing. Stuff like full-on comedy and whimsicalness, but then it's like also a nightmare. I love the movie Mother, the Jennifer Lawrence movie Mother, because that feels like I'm within someone's nightmare. Beau is Afraid is the exact same, and I love that sensation of being in a nightmare, and they nail it in this movie. Beau is Afraid is my movie of the year. Guys, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to try and watch even more movies next year, read even more books. And I've got this Gorilla Pod now, so I can just have my camera set up on my desk. I don't have to set up my tripod and my lights and all that. I can just get up and go and shoot. So I want to do a lot more videos for you guys that way, because it's so much more accessible now. And I don't have to get bogged down or have like burnout from setup and tear down of all my lights and shit. I can just click record and go. And I love it. So guys, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great 2024. I hope your 2023 was amazing. And I cannot wait for what's next.